The Boeing 737, the workhorse of global aviation. For decades, it soared as the symbol of reliability, carrying millions across the world. But in the last decade, the legacy of the 737 took a dark turn, unraveling the once venerable name of Boeing. How did the world's most successful aircraft become a symbol of corporate failure? How did Boeing, a pioneer in aviation safety and innovation, allow this to happen? And what can be learned from the deadly downfall of the Boeing 737 MAX? This is the story of the Boeing 737 MAX, a story of hubris, corporate failure, and lives lost. To truly understand the Boeing 737 MAX, we must first look at the lineage from which it came. Launched in 1967, the Boeing 737 was designed to be a short-haul, reliable aircraft for airlines seeking to expand in the post-war aviation boom. At the time, Boeing was already a household name, with the success of the 707, the first commercially successful jetliner. The original 737, the -100 series, was compact, efficient, and ideal for shorter routes. Over time, the aircraft evolved into several iterations: the 737-200, 737 Classic, and the Next Generation Series, or NG, as it's known today. It became the backbone of fleets worldwide, known for its reliability and ease of maintenance. For decades, the 737 reigned supreme in the world of short-haul flights. But in 2011, Boeing faced a monumental challenge from its European rival, Airbus. Airbus introduced the A320neo, a revolutionary aircraft that promised airlines 15% better fuel efficiency, drastically lowering operational costs. Airlines flocked to Airbus, placing orders for this new aircraft by the thousands. The pressure on Boeing was immense. Boeing had a choice: either design a new plane from scratch, a project that would take years and billions of dollars, or modify its existing 737 to compete with the A320neo. The decision was critical. Rather than risk losing market share, Boeing made a fateful decision. They would stick with the 737's core design and simply modify it, creating the 737 MAX. Boeing's decision to modify the 737 rather than building a new aircraft was driven by one factor: time. They needed to keep up with Airbus, and developing a brand new jet would take years, potentially up to a decade. Boeing executives promised airlines quick deliveries and faster profits, but that came at a cost. Racing against the clock, Boeing engineers worked under immense pressure to deliver a plane that could compete with the A320neo. But this rush led to compromises, some of which would have deadly consequences. One of the largest changes was the inclusion of the larger, more fuel-efficient LEAP engines. These engines, while more efficient, were also larger and heavier than those on previous 737 models. Due to the 737's low ground clearance, the new engines had to be mounted higher and further forward on the wing. This seemingly small adjustment had a profound impact on the plane's aerodynamics. Under certain conditions, the 737 MAX was prone to pitching upward more aggressively during takeoff, a behavior Boeing's engineers needed to mitigate. And this is where Boeing made its next critical decision. The Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS, was Boeing's solution to the 737 MAX's pitching problem. Its purpose? To automatically adjust the plane's nose downward if the sensors detected it was climbing too steeply, reducing the risk of a stall. But there was a problem, a deadly one. MCAS relied on data from a single angle of attack sensor. If this sensor malfunctioned or gave incorrect readings, the system could push the nose down when it didn't need to, a potentially catastrophic error. Boeing believed MCAS was a minor system, one that didn't require extensive pilot training. In fact, many pilots flying the 737 MAX didn't even know the system existed. Boeing didn't include it in most training programs, and the aircraft's manual only briefly mentioned it. This lack of transparency would soon prove fatal, with catastrophic consequences for Boeing and for those who flew on the MAX. October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610, a brand new Boeing 737 MAX 8, takes off from Jakarta, Indonesia. Minutes after departure, the pilots notice that something is wrong. The plane's nose begins to pitch downward, repeatedly. Unbeknownst to the pilots, the plane's angle of attack sensor is malfunctioning. It's feeding incorrect data to MCAS. which in turn is pushing the nose down again and again. The pilots, unaware of MCAS's existence, struggle to regain control, but their efforts are in vain. Lion Air Flight 610 plunges into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people aboard. Investigators quickly zero in on the MCAS system, identifying it as the primary cause of the crash. But for Boeing, this is only the beginning. The tragedy should have been a wake-up call, but for Boeing, it was seen as just another problem to be managed. As the investigation continued, Boeing assured regulators, airlines, and the public that the 737 MAX was safe. March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, another Boeing 737 MAX 8, takes off from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, en route to Nairobi. 6 minutes into the flight, disaster strikes again. The plane crashes, killing all 157 passengers and crew. The circumstances of the crash are disturbingly similar to those of Lion Air Flight 610. Once again, a faulty AOA sensor triggers MCAS, forcing the nose down. Once again, the pilots are unaware of the system that is working against them. The second crash confirms what many in the industry feared. The 737 MAX is fundamentally flawed. Countries around the world quickly ground the aircraft, and investigations are launched into Boeing's development practices. They uncover a disturbing pattern. Boeing's culture of speed, cost-cutting, and risk-taking had led to the rushed development of the 737 MAX. Profits had been prioritized over safety. Internal emails reveal a reluctance to disclose critical information about MCAS to regulators and pilots. In one email, a Boeing employee refers to the 737 MAX as a clown plane built by people who had lost touch with safety. It becomes clear that Boeing had cut corners, not just in the design of the aircraft, but in its testing and certification. The company had been allowed to self-certify much of the MAX's safety features, leaving the FAA in the dark about critical issues. Under mounting pressure from regulators, airlines, and the public, Boeing finally admits that MCAS was at fault for both crashes, but the admission comes too late. In March 2019, the FAA grounds the 737 MAX worldwide. This grounding will last for nearly 2 years. Boeing is left scrambling to fix the aircraft. Engineers redesign MCAS, making it less dependent on a single sensor and easier for pilots to override. New pilot training protocols are put in place, but for Boeing, the damage is already done. In 2020, after extensive reviews and software updates, the 737 MAX is cleared to return to service, but the damage to Boeing's reputation is profound. Airlines resume flights, but passengers remain wary. Can the public trust a plane that claimed the lives of 346 people? The aviation industry is built on trust, and rebuilding that trust would prove to be one of Boeing's greatest challenges. The Boeing 737 MAX crisis isn't just a story of one company's failure. It's a cautionary tale for the entire aviation industry, a stark reminder that corporate greed and cost-cutting can have deadly consequences. The tragedy highlighted the dangers of rushing complex systems to market without proper oversight and testing. It also underscored the need for stronger regulation, transparency, and corporate accountability. The Boeing 737 MAX may have returned to the skies, but its legacy is now forever intertwined with the tragedy of 346 lost souls. Every flight it takes, every journey it completes, carries the weight of a past that cannot be undone. The memories of those crashes are etched into the history of aviation, a sobering reminder of what happens when corporate priorities are misaligned with safety. For decades, Boeing represented the pinnacle of aerospace innovation. Its planes were marvels of engineering, trusted by millions of passengers, and respected across the globe for their reliability and safety. Airlines placed their faith in Boeing to deliver not only cutting-edge technology, but also aircraft that embodied the highest safety standards. The Boeing name once stood as a symbol of confidence and excellence in the skies. In the end, Boeing's 737 MAX will fly again, but its wings will forever cast the long shadow of a deadly downfall, one that will be remembered as a critical chapter in aviation history, where hard lessons were learned, but at a cost too great to measure.